24th, a bit about choosing boxes for your cigar box guitars. A lot of people, a lot of builders, especially newer builders, get pretty worked up about MDF tops versus plywood tops, and what we want to do is give you some things to think about how much it matters. So we're going to start by playing a little bit. We've got two 3-string open G cigar box guitars here, tuned the same. Hope so. Oh, yeah. All right. They were a minute ago. A little bit when the Saints go marching in. Are you ready? In a future broadcast, we'll be showing you why straps are very handy things on guitars. Glenn, we're going to bring Nick in for a moment for the portion of showing you how you can tell whether your cigar box has a MDF or plywood top. And then we'll bring Glenn back in after that to talk about box choices when building. So let's call Nick in, and Glenn will be back in a minute. Come on in. We'll wait till Glenn gets behind the camera because we're going to try a couple of close-ups here. So you can see we have a lot of paper-covered boxes here at CB Gitty. And really when you're out there in the wilds building, you go to your cigar shop or wherever you get your boxes, the selection may be limited. So here is a way that you can tell whether the top of the box, the decorative top panel here, is plywood or MDF. Now, before we do that, usually the bottoms of the boxes are plywood. Not always, but like here's one that is not. But a lot of the Fuente boxes, a lot of the nicer boxes, even if the top is MDF, the bottom will be plywood. And you can actually use that as your soundboard on pretty much any box that has it. So that's one thing to note. So, alright, we're going to try a close-up here. We're going to start with this Double Chateau Fuente cigar box. And I'm just going to come towards the camera and open it up. And I've got a little razor knife here. And if you open the box up, and you get it in nice and tight, this inside edge here is not visible when the box is closed. So if you take your razor knife and just kind of peel a little of that paper away, and you look at what's in there, you can see that does not have any layers to it. It's just a solid mass of particles, and that is MDF, medium density fiberboard, or hardboard is another name for it. So that's MDF top. So when the box is closed, now that slice you made is not visible. So that's a kind of invisible way without having to drill or cut or get crazy. You can also on the inside scrape some of that paper away, but it can be harder to tell that way. Maybe they have a veneer over MDF in there, but when you look at the side, you can see the full thickness of that and get a good idea. Yeah. Now, Nick, you worked in a cigar shop for a few years before coming to CB Gitty. The trends over the years, come on into the frame here, the trends that you've seen, a lot of boxes used to be made from all wood, and then over the years, they've moved to MDF for tops, for sides, pretty much anything they can cover, because MDF is less expensive, maybe more readily available.
Yeah, as you can imagine, if you're making a lot of cigar boxes and you're putting them out in bulk, making them as cheap as possible, because it can be pretty expensive if you're making them out of all wood. There are still a lot of companies that do all wood cigar boxes the traditional way.
See them in the background there, where we keep all the wooden boxes.
Because they were originally like these crates, and you can see them reminiscent of like nub boxes from Oliva, or something like These guys here from Drew Estate, they tend to do a plywood top with thicker sides.
Solid wood sides,
Yeah.
actually. That's not even plywood.
Yeah, if you look at that, you can see the difference. You'd be able to tell right away. Solid wood, and then the plywood up here. On these, we're lucky. You can see that the center of it is actually is plywood, which is good if you're making an instrument or even an amps, because it's easier to go through the top than it is the side. A lot of paper covered boxes, they kind of brought around, they can put more artwork on top of them, and then they decided that, hey, they can make it a little cheaper by doing MDF, so they started switching over.
And it's easy to get complacent. Like, well, I checked one Arturo Fuente double chateau box, and it was MDF, so they all are. Or it was plywood. But they'll switch it up on you. We've gotten batches of double chateaus or the Churchills, and seemingly with no rhyme or reason, some will be plywood and some are MDF. So it seems like it's whatever the box factory can get most readily in any certain time is what they use. So now to show the other variety, we have here a Chateau Fuente King Bee box, one of the biggest square inch boxes being made, quite thin. But this one, if we get in here and do the same thing with the razor knife, try to zoom right in here and peel some of that away carefully, he said. So you can see there, hopefully, you see separate layers, wooden layers. So this is plywood. This is a plywood top Arturo Fuente King Bee box, which is highly prized by some builders. John Lowe loves these boxes for making his Lobos. And if he sees this, I'm probably going to be getting a phone call from John. Hey, how many you got? So that shows you how you can discreetly see what you've got in your cigar box. And we're going to switch back. We're going to bring Glenn back in. Thank you, Nick.
Yeah.
And talk a little bit about, does this even matter? Because a lot of people get pretty worked up about it. Is, you know, can I use an MDF top? Can I do this? Can I do that? And it turns out, Glenn, if you pick up that one,
Yeah.
it turns out that these two cigar boxes, very similar in overall construction. The box size is pretty close to the same. They're tuned the same. And this one has an MDF top, and that one has a plywood top. And if we kind of come in a little closer here, maybe, well, I guess it doesn't have to flip around. And if I strum this one and Glenn strums that one, kind of I'm trying to strum with the same pressure. You can hear that difference. In fact, if you put me in a blindfold and played one and then the other, I'd be hard pressed to tell you that's plywood and that's MDF. It's really close. And the point from that I'd like to make is that I wouldn't get too worked up about it. We don't get too worked up about it here when we're building guitars. And Glenn, you frequently come out here when it's time to build a new guitar, design a new guitar. You come out and you're looking at boxes. And does plywood versus MDF enter into your selection equation?
It doesn't often play into my decision making when it comes to building a guitar. I find that they're attractive and very highly sought after. Having all wood guitars or all wood boxes are highly sought after for aesthetically and for some people acoustically as well. My big thing is, however, and something to keep in mind, is that I'm fortunate to work for Ben, and I do have here a warehouse of boxes available to me from which to pick to build a guitar. However, while building at home, which many of us are, if not most of us, you take what you can get. And I'm not trying to jump off the topic of a plywood versus or MDF versus all wood boxes, but when it comes down to it, if what you have available to you is an all wood cardboard box, or excuse me, an all cardboard box, I'd say build with a cardboard box.
One little caveat on that, there are some boxes out there that are actually cardboard, like Swisher Sweets boxes and RG Dunn and Dutch Masters. Some like drugstore cigar boxes are cardboard. And actually I think that topper I grabbed earlier is very thin top, bendy. It might be MDF in there, but building with a true cardboard box, I don't really recommend it. We get some on occasion in the big batches that come in, and we just kind of set them aside because of the amount of bracing you would have to do in there. It can be worth it on older boxes, but MDF or hardboard boxes as separate from cardboard is what we're talking about here.
Yeah. Forgive me, I
Sorry to
apologize.
jump in just in one.
No, that's good.
One,
So,
any
do you want to
confusion.
refocus this then? So what we're looking for here is, remind me, because I just lost track a little bit here.
The theme of our broadcast today is that our advice is don't worry too much about it. Use the boxes you have available. Don't get too hung up about doing it the right way or what's the real way to build a real cigar box guitar. Because honestly, there isn't a right way. There isn't a formula that you have to follow and check off all the check boxes. It's use what you've got, improvise, and often you'll be surprised with what you end up with. I mean, there have been times when, Glenn, you've built a one-off guitar using a smaller, flatter box. You know, like here's a little Monte Cristo, which, you know, put a stick through it and a couple of strings, and even a smaller box can surprise you.
Agreed.
With the sound it'll put out.
I totally agree with you, and I know that's a little bit off topic from where we're at, but using box size as an example for building, I think people get really concerned about what size box should I use? Do I have the right size box? And again, to kind of readdress what Ben's already said, and that is like take what you can get.
The answer is yes.
Yeah, the answer is always yes.
The answer is yes.
Build. So this can make a fine cigar box guitar. Period. As well can this. And so can any one of the all-wood boxes that are 3 inches deep behind us. It's what, and I'm not trying to sound too hippy-dippy about it, but it's what you're willing to do with it. Now, I have built, in one of my videos, I've built with the easiest way to build a cigar box guitar. I used an all-cardboard box. And for all intents and purposes, the point was that you can make a perfectly good-sounding, playable instrument out of nearly anything, but in keeping in line with cigar box guitars, you can just, this would make inherently would make a slightly better acoustic guitar just due to its size, the volume, but this can be a great cigar box guitar as well, especially if you want to make an electric with a what we sell here are disc piezo to jack harnesses. Yes. You can also buy the disc piezo and the jack yourself from us, and you can make solder those harnesses yourself. So I just to stress the importance of being able to be happy with what you have and to make that piece of art that is that you have.
That's it. People, if you go on cigarboxnation.com, there are photos of guys who have built guitars out of pizza boxes, cardboard pizza boxes with weed whacker strings, and so it really is. Pretty much anything can be used to make music, and that's one of the awesome things about this hobby, this obsession, is that see what it's going to sound like, give it a voice, create some art, and see what it does. So we usually start getting comments well before this time of shut up and play something. So fortunately we only prepared one. So what do you think we're going to do this time?
Let's walk them out with the same thing.
All right. Maybe we could go into we'll just do.
All right.
Well, that's all we've got for you today from CB Gitty. This is Cigar Box Nation TV. We've been broadcasting live, and we hope you enjoy it.